This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. When I was a very young Browns fan during the early parts of the reactivation era, right? You're talking about early 2000s, pretty much up until 2018. The word extension was not a word that I was familiar with in the context of the Cleveland Browns, because the Cleveland Browns didn't really extend that many people. Like maybe 6 people in 20 years they've extended. They definitely didn't extend any coaches. They did not extend any GMs, just weren't really into the whole extension thing, right? We weren't handing them out. But this is a very different time for the Cleveland Browns. Whether the results on the field have been what you want, you have to admit that the results on the field have been much better in the last 4 years than the last 20 years combined. And when you have better results on the field, that usually means you have more talent. And when you have more talent, you have a lot of players that you have to talk about getting extended. So what I want to talk about this week, this will be the first part of it. I want to talk about Browns who are going to get extended and Browns who you might not expect to get that extension. So we're going to start with the guys who I think will get extended and when I think those extensions should come. First person on this list is obviously Kevin Stefanski. I expect his extension to probably come as soon as anybody's. Him and Andrew Berry's. They're both a pair. Now, why will Kevin Stefanski get an extension? I don't feel like I have to explain this. He's a 2-time coach of the year, but there are people who don't think he deserves an extension. Kevin has been very successful for the Cleveland Browns, but also he's been very successful when you compare him to other NFL head coaches in general. He has a plus 500 record, I think a 560 win percentage throughout his 4 years in Cleveland. You look at coaches who have a 560 win percentage with 2 playoff appearances in their first 4 years. Those coaches usually get extensions, let alone coaches who win 2 coaches of the year. You think about the context of some of those seasons, right? 11-6 when they were dealing with the coronavirus. Granted, the whole league was, but he won coach of the year that year. And then won coach of the year this year when he lost 26% of his salary cap due to IR. So that is some impressive stuff on Kevin's resume. Obviously, there's things that Kevin could get better at. I think a lot of people agree and disagree where those areas are for Kevin. I don't think play calling is an area where he needs to get better at, but I do think what he does need to get better at and where he really need to get better at when you look at where he started in 2020 and where he is now and where he showed signs of getting better at, which is the good thing, is he is somebody who needed to get better people in that process to create the ins and out of this team, right? He needed some more former players. He needed some more guys with different ideas on offense. All of those things Kevin needed around him, and that's something that he's done more of. You can go to my full review of Kevin Stefanski if you want to hear everything that I do and don't like about him. But yeah, man, Kevin's done a great job. He's definitely done an extension-worthy job. I don't think there's a franchise in the NFL that if Kevin did the job that they did for him, that he wouldn't get the extension. And that's one thing I think we ought to stop doing is, like, even when you're defending Kevin saying, well, he's the best Browns coach in 20 years. That does not work as a good argument, in my opinion, because that's arguing against a low bar, especially for somebody who doesn't require having to argue against a low bar. Kevin Stefanski's work holds up to other NFL coaches. It's stronger than the first 4 years of Kyle Shanahan. So that alone, tells me that he's somebody who's definitely extension worthy and that any other team would be happy to extend Kevin Stefanski. And if your test is if you fired your coach, would somebody else hire him? Yeah, Kevin would get hired in a heartbeat. I think if there was if he got fired when there were a bunch of openings, he's young, he's an offensive mind, and he's known for his work with quarterbacks and offenses. He coached Baker Mayfield to his best and most efficient season of his career. You could say the same thing, arguably, for Kirk Cousins, and you can also say that he helped Joe Flacco win Comeback Player of the Year. So he has a lot of things under his belt. The other guy that's going to get an extension, obviously, is Andrew Berry. I kind of mentioned this while talking about Kevin Stefanski. Andrew's resume is pretty impressive. Now, he didn't build this whole roster, but he did a great job of selecting who to keep from the old regime and who to let go. David Njoku is somebody he chose to extend. Wyatt Teller, Joe Bitonio. He didn't do the thing that a lot of GMs do, where they just give up on guys that they did not draft. He really stuck with the process throughout the whole ride of it. Now, it does help that I think he only spent a year or two away from the Browns organization. For those of you who don't know, Andrew Berry was he like assistant? He was like vice president of football ops under Sashi Brown, right? When they were doing that whole thing with the tanking. Andrew Berry was a very high-ranking member of the Cleveland Browns organization. And since Sachi didn't pick the players, I think Andrew had a lot of say in that. I don't know how that all worked out, and one day there'll be a Netflix documentary about it. We'll know what Andrew's responsibilities were during that period. But since he's been the GM, the drafts have been universally solid. Like, I don't think he's had a bad draft. You would wish that, again, my big criticism on Andrew Berry is that I wish the home runs hit quicker, right? Like, sometimes he goes for these home runs, the Deshaun Watson trade. We're not sure about that right now. Jed Wills, 10th overall. We're not sure about that right now. Like, his big swings tend to be the ones where we have to wait and see what happens. But his value shopping is where he does his work, right? Getting Martin Emerson in the late rounds, DeJuan Jones in the late rounds, JOK in the second round. There's not a better value shopper on earth than I think Andrew Berry has been. But, he's got to get better at that big ticket shopping. That's really a big thing for him going forward. The next guy who I think is going to get an extension, and this is not a common take out there, Nick Chubb. The reason I think Nick Chubb's going to get an extension is exactly why people are arguing for him not to get an extension, right? You've heard the argument. Nick Chubb's coming off a knee injury. It's so uncertain. The future's uncertain with Nick Chubb. And man, I'm sorry. I'm willing to bet on Nick Chubb. He's earned that to me. Not only because he has Nick Chubb and I like him and he has a good persona and all that stuff, but really the reason why I think you should believe in Nick Chubb being able to come back from an injury like this is this ain't the first time he's had to do it. If there's somebody who has proven that they can come back from something like this and play at a spectacular level, it's Nicholas Jamal Chubb. He's one of the guys we've literally seen do it before. And for people to be doubting him and not giving him the benefit of the doubt right now and just assuming he's going to be mid, I think that's crazy to me. Nick Chubb does not deserve to be looked at with your regular running back timelines. Like I know everybody has their running back timelines and, by the time they turn this is what happens. That's for regular running backs, right? If we were talking about Jerome Ford, Pierre Strong, a Devin Singletary, whomever, Zach Moss, sure, I would buy what you're selling. But we're not talking about a regular dude. This dude ain't been a regular dude not a single year in his major football playing career. He wasn't a regular dude his freshman year at Georgia. He wasn't a regular dude once he came back from the ACL injury. He wasn't a regular dude his rookie, second, third, fourth years at Cleveland Brown. And he's not going to be a regular dude once he comes back from this injury. He's Nick Chubb. He's earned the benefit of the doubt. And the way people talk about him as if he's just a running back is insane. The Browns don't believe that. Andrew Berry doesn't believe that. Kevin Stefanski doesn't believe that. Nobody in that locker room believes that. People who talk about Nick Chubb as just a running back, they're out of touch. Like, Nick Chubb is a different dude. If he was just a running back, him showing up alone doing a Batman sign wouldn't pump up the whole crowd. So yeah, I would give him an extension. If I got to bet on Nick Chubb, if there's one player I would bet on after injury, it's Nick Chubb. I'm sorry, I'm gonna do it. But I I think he should get an extension this summer because it would free up some cap space, put the Browns in a little bit of a better cap situation going forward. And I think the Browns want to have Nick Chubb here for the long run. And I think that includes getting him on a long-term deal. If you want to get him on a long-term deal, if you believe he's going to come back from this injury, there's no need to wait and see. Just give him the extra year and give him that security because I think he's worth it. And you might save money in the long run. So I think this makes sense for both sides. Nick Chubb gets some security. Y'all get to also secure some things for later on. This makes sense. JOK, I think he's going to get his extension late in the regular season this year. So 2024-25 regular season. He's going to get his extension. It's obvious to me that because they're moving this linebacker room to being built around his skill set. And I think we're going to find out this year that JOK is going to be the one that benefits the most long-term from the attention that Myles Garrett gets. You look at what somebody like Kyle Hamilton or Pat Queen can do in Baltimore with how they use their defensive line. And they don't have a singular stud on that defensive line in Baltimore that demands double teams like Myles Garrett. And then you think about using JOK like that when he's already an instinctive player. He's already a really fast player. I think there's a lot there to scratch with JOK. And I think I think we're going to figure out during the course of the season, oh, that's who we can use as a wingman to Myles Garrett is JOK, and then sometimes Grant Delpit on the other side. But I think JOK is going to be a big part of making teams pay for how they try to defend Myles Garrett. I mean, I think we saw a little bit of it at the end of the season this year. David Njoku, I think he's going to get another extension. He's due up for one. He'll be a free agent, I think, in 2026. So I think the Browns will want to get it done before it even comes to that. He's one of the best tight ends in the NFL. If he starts off hot and has a season like that, and if him and Deshaun Watson get a good connection going, which it looks like they were on the way to having, then ceiling is the roof for David Njoku. Great athlete, great with the ball in his hands, great blocker, all-around tight end. That's definitely somebody you want to have on your team for a while, and he has a skill set that you feel like can age well as well. Martin Emerson is another guy that's earmarked for an extension. You have Denzel Ward on this team till 2028. Then you're probably going to have Martin Emerson next to him until then, right? So I think he's going to get an extension again late in the regular season. He'll be one of those guys that they try to target. If the Browns have proven one thing over the last few years, especially in the Andrew Berry regime, they like to retain their own players, especially their big name players. The guys they bring in on 1-year deals, those are in and out, but the core of this team has really been together for a while. I think that's something this franchise values now, and I think that's something that they're going to do going forward. A couple of guys on my honorable mention list, Ogbonnia Okoronkwo. He is somebody who's interested in me because I think he has a skill set that you kind of want to keep around Myles, but I don't know if that's something that you extend. Maybe you re-up with the younger guy. Maybe you think Isaiah McGuire is going to fill in that role. That's something to watch. DeAnthony Bell's also another one because I think he has good ball instincts. I think he's a good player, but the unfortunate thing for DeAnthony Bell, he's good at the same stuff that Grant Delpit is good at. So I don't know if the opportunity is going to be there unless Grant Delpit gets hurt, which nobody wants. But those are my players who I think are going to get extended soon. Let me know who you think is going to get extended soon in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have a better night. Peace.